It's Julia Renee.
And Kendall Aaliyah. Welcome back to the Know Your Power podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey guys. Oh, you even match your phone case.
Oh my God, yes.
You're truly a vibe.
Whenever I have a new favorite color, I make it my whole personality.
You really commit. I respect it.
Yeah, like pink pillow, pink chairs, pink sweatsuit, pink
For
sticky
those
notes.
who are maybe newer listeners or newer to the Julia lore, Julia was orange for a long time.
I was orange.
Not you physically. kind
My
of.
being. Yeah.
Your hair was for a while.
My hair was orange.
But anyway, orange was Julia's favorite color, and she fully committed to it. I think the same way I commit to black, so I understand it. And now it's funny watching you transition to pink, and like everything in your house is slowly being swapped out.
Everything is pink.
And you know, there's something so nice about living alone because you can decorate however you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like you would do that anyway.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zach didn't. He never cared. Like,
but now you can go extra pink.
Yeah, but now it's like I don't even have to consider you.
Yeah. I don't need to ask
feelers.
You about our bedding being pink, our dressers being pink.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember when I got our pink bedspread. He just came home and he walked in. He goes, "Oh." He was like, "Okay, our bed is pink now," and I was like, "Yes, it is."
I was trying to get a new cat bed for Kovu, and they had this. He loves being covered, like he loves being under a blanket. So they have like covered cat beds that I was looking at, and they had one in the shape of a milk carton, but it was pink, and I thought it was the cutest thing ever.
Cute.
And Cooper's like, "Oh, but he's a boy." I was like, "So what?" First off, he's a cat.
Yep.
Second off, my place. I want it to be aesthetic, and I want pink.
I got Loki. The backpack that I carry him around in is pink.
Yeah, we need to get one of those too.
Yeah. I'm like, he knows he's a boy. That's all that matters. Who says pink is just for girls?
Not at all. I actually love when my boyfriend wears pink. He wears it often, and I love it.
Salmon. There's an episode of Friends where Ross leaves a pink shirt at his ex-girlfriend's house, and he tries to get it back, and he like refuses to call it pink, and he goes, "It's salmon."
It's salmon.
You're like, yeah, okay, that's
which is pink.
Salmon is pink. But yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Today,
tangent.
We're talking about bodybuilding. Episode 2 of, what did I name this here?
Bodybuilding Blueprint.
The Bodybuilding Blueprint. That's what I named it at this point. Do you ever like make so much content that you forget who you tell things to?
Yes. And then I forget that I also tell people in real life.
I forget to tell the real life people, and I tell social media first. And then my mom's like, hello. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Sometimes I do that too, but then sometimes, or I'll reference YouTube as like, oh, I was just telling my friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my camera.
I'll be like, okay, so the other day I was telling the pod.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yes.
Like the pod is a person.
Yeah.
You guys are obviously a lot of individual people.
Yes.
Yeah, but I lose track of what I tell people and what I don't tell people.
Well, this is the Know Your Power podcast, and we're doing a series called Bodybuilding Blueprint.
And what day is it?
Just so you can check in. It's Wednesday, but this is being posted on Monday.
Yeah.
So that's extra.
Just kidding.
Easy.
It's Monday for you guys.
Happy Monday.
Yes. So today's episode, we're going to be going over basically what it's like to be on prep. So I kind of broke this down to where we're going over right before prep, like right before starting it, the very beginning, what it's like, mid prep, and then those last like 4 to 6 weeks. And I kind of want to sprinkle in, I'm curious like how you feel during these moments. I know that we can do our best to give you guys an idea of what it's going to be like, but then again, everybody's journey is so different. You know, whether you're a first-time competitor listening to this series or you're a seasoned competitor and you're just like looking for our, I guess, experience going through it, because sometimes it just makes you feel nice when you know. I also
feel like every prep I've ever done has been different from each other too. So it's like, it doesn't even just vary person to person. It varies depending on like where you're starting from, how far out from your show are you, and how your body's responding to the program, because sometimes you'll do the same exact program. I know you know this, and you're like, why isn't it working?
Literally every prep that I have done, the only thing that has really stayed the same that I know my body does well with is high amounts of cardio.
Yep. That's like a
the
non-negotiable.
one thing that never changed. I am still hopeful, and I enjoy doing the cardio. Like I am of course, like my body hurts at a certain point, and I feel like I'm just going to disintegrate into the air and just
yep.
blow away. But it's a lot of time out of your day.
Yeah.
So these first like beginning weeks of prep, like let's call it pre-prep, like getting ready to actually start. I would say like on average, bodybuilders can take anywhere from like a 16 to a 24 week prep.
Yeah.
And this is just like on average. Me personally, I usually do 20 weeks. And I do this regardless of how my physique is looking. So this is going to kind of be different from person to person because it's based off of how much body fat you want to lose. Also, what division you're competing in also determines how much body fat that you need to lose and what kind of look you're going for.
Yeah.
And if you do have a coach, that's the one thing that I wouldn't skimp on for your show. There's like certain things in like bodybuilding where I'm like, don't do the cheap route.
Yeah, like non-negotiables.
I'm like, like one of those is a bodybuilding coach to hold yourself accountable to the highest degree, and don't do your own tan.
Yes, that's also a good non-negotiable.
I'm always like, just do the show, just do the tan that they have at the show, unless they do have like pro tan, which is like a actual one that you can do at home for yourself, but it's a professional thing. Those are great, but there's
then I just don't trust myself.
I don't. And you would need like another person to do it.
And there's something about like, I get it. If Pro Tan's actually sponsoring the show and the one doing the tan, then you will look on par. But if a different tan company is doing it, you're going to look different, and you don't ever want to stand out in a bad way on stage.
Because it's very, very obvious. Like the reason that you do a tan at a show in the first place is because it almost makes everybody have the same like skin tone, and it does make your muscles look a lot better.
Yeah, because the lights are so bright, where if you've ever done like any sort of like theater or dance, like, you know how those stage lights are, and if you don't have a tan or really drastic makeup on, you look completely washed out. If I stepped on stage with my day-to-day skin tone, I think I would glow. Like, I think my skin would just be like translucent. So
or
you need
wouldn't
that tan.
really like see your lines
at all,
because you're also pretty far away, and then you have white lights bouncing off your milky white skin. You know, it's just like you're not going to see the lines like as well.
That's a good thing to go over, because if you are a new competitor, some people really don't know.
Yes, like a lot of people don't understand why we do the tan, and it does look ridiculous and crazy and all of that stuff, but there's also like the glaze and whatnot, which is actually stuff we're going to talk about in our next episode, where we go over like peak week and like what a show day looks like typically, so that you can have a game plan of like how you're going to feel and like what's to expect. So
that'll be exciting.
With like these beginning stages of prep, if you have a coach, they'll also give you a better idea of how far out you want to start. So my coach, he's like a 20-week guy, which is something that I did when I was with Zach and he was my coach. And I did it regardless if I needed to cut a lot or if I didn't need to cut a lot, because typically during that first, like I would say month, those first 4 weeks, I was more so clicking into like the mindset of, okay, we're in prep now. Like I am moving away from having free meals. I'm moving away from maybe eating a little bit more here or there. Like you're really getting dialed in, and it could take anywhere from, studies show 21 days to like build a habit. So that's just what I do. Now it's different for everybody, and that's completely fine. So hopefully your coach will give you an idea of where you're going to actually sit for that. The reason that prep can be upwards of 20 to 16 weeks is because ideally you want to preserve as much muscle mass while getting as lean as you can. Now, if you do, say, like an 8-week cut to get ready for a show, even if you're like already ready-ish, it's very drastic and it can be very dangerous. So the longer that we have to have this ideal package on stage, the better off you're going to be health-wise. You're not going to crash like way sooner than you need to be. I know there's like horror stories of coaches where they're like, oh, like I'll take a client, 8 weeks out, and then they just slash,
it's not healthy.
It's just cardio is high, calories are low, and like it can be a dangerous sport, which is what we went into in the last episode. But how can we make it as healthy as possible? And if that means like extending it a little bit longer, then why not do that? Still talking about like the early like stages before you actually start, like there is a lot of excitement and build up for doing this. Like no matter if you've done it before, if you haven't done it before, like when you commit to like a goal and you have it, it's so much more exciting. Like the example that I want to give you guys is that I got blood work done not too long ago. And me and my coach do this every year when we've already gone through our reverse diet phase. We've been in our building phase for a little bit now. And now that I'm at such a healthy point, I got my period back. He's like, okay, now we're going to test your blood work and see where it's at. And he has me test it at a very specific time frame in my menstrual cycle. I swear to you, my coach knows more about my menstrual cycle than I do. He's just so knowledgeable, and I got the results back. Everything was looking good. And compared to where it was when I first got with him, like it's just incredible.
Good.
But even with that information, we were able to roughly game plan our next like 3 possible shows for 2025. And even though it's like not soon, I still like had that more drive and excitement, and I was like, I'm just so ready to go to the gym, so having a goal, even if you're not starting towards it yet, gives you that motivation and excitement.
Well, like even through an off season, like planning your next year. So say you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not ready yet, but I want to compete in like 2026. Build that excitement around how much muscle you can put on this year so that you're ready for that prep next year and how you'll look once you lean out. Like it's always such a long game in bodybuilding and looking into like the future where it's like, okay, maybe your goal is turning pro. That builds so much excitement around the first show, around nationals, around like hopefully placing and getting that pro card and then like competing as a pro. Like it's a really long haul sport. Even if you win every show, first show you ever do, you win, and then nationals you win. Like it's still months and months and months. It isn't like a soccer game where you could just like walk onto the field and play that day. Like it is such a long prep.
So. It really is even for example, we just went to Katie's powerlifting meet, and Katie, she's been on the podcast. Katie Coaches Vegan on Instagram. She's just one of our good friends, and she did what's it called? Powerlifting, where they pick things up and put it down. And it's just like we and Kendall were like, okay, like what do you win? Like, okay, what does this mean? Like we really genuine. It's all in the same world of fitness, but it's different. Like they're judging things differently. Yeah. And I was asking like, well, how long does it take to like prepare for this? And I was asking her coach, and he's like, yeah, I mean, maybe like 8 weeks or 12 weeks. And like during that time, I'm like, well, what in my mind, I'm like, what does that look like? Yeah.
Cause it's such a different type of prep where they are prioritizing strength. And PRs and like RPEs and that type of training, while we're just
LMNOPs.
Like eat less.
And we're just like, you just look good, okay? If you look good, that'd be good. Yeah. So it's just so different. One thing that I did want to bring up, and I'm curious of like what you think about this, but before we go into like the next step, macros versus meal plan. What do you do?
I need a meal plan.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
I don't want to have to, first off, I don't want to have to do math as I'm on prep. There's no way. I'm not calculating anything. I also don't like having even the possibility of flexibleness within my diet.
Yeah.
I like when I switch prep mode on, we are 200% committed. You will not catch me cheating on my meal plan. You will not catch me having a refeed when I'm not supposed to. And having a meal plan makes it a lot easier to know this is exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. It's not going to vary versus like having macros. It's a lot easier to kind of write things off of like, well, that fit. And it's like, but should it have?
I also agree with you. There's something about a switch that is flipped when I move from off season into macros and calories, and on season to where I follow my coach's meal plan, and that's just it.
Yeah.
There have been, I would say for the past couple preps with my coach, I do typically start the first 4 to 8 weeks doing if it fits your macros. And then after that, it's switched to a meal plan. Not only because he's like, this is what we're doing, Julia, and because I'm also like, yes, I need it, but I'm also wondering if this time around, if I just don't want to do that.
I feel like sometimes it's just a preference.
Yeah.
That's why I know competitors who
there
step on stage.
There are a lot of competitors that do macros.
And they do it up until like peak week.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just think it depends like who you are mentally. And I'm someone where I need like a written plan. I'm also someone where I think ignorance is bliss sometimes. I don't want to know how low my calories are.
True.
If I'm being honest.
True.
I'd rather just eat what you tell me to eat. I'm not going to look too deep into the quantity and how low my carbs are. I don't want to know. So that's my take.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's just like eat this much of this much of this. You don't know how many calories it is, and cool, great. Yeah, I'm very much under the mindset of that, and that's going to be different from coach to coach. So just something to consider.
And it's something like try both. And if you are in an off season right now, or like thinking again long-term about competing maybe next year or late this year, like test out both and see how you mentally feel. Because there also is the attachment of like having my history with like the binging where I, again, just don't want anything to be left up to chance or left up to me. Like I'd rather just listen to my coach, but I know some people are the opposite and they feel a lot more secure with food when they can fit your macros. So.
Yes. I think for me, I think this time around, if I wanted to do macros, I would be a little bit better like mentally with doing the switch, but also there's just something that happens where I'm like, okay, once I go to a meal plan, that's it. Yeah. Like it's freaking go time. Yeah. Like it's just, I don't know. It depends on person.
It's probably what we're used to.
Yeah.
Also.
That's all I've been doing.
We had the same coach for a little bit. So if that's what we were given, I'm sure that's what we're used to.
It, and I just knew, and I was like, okay, cool. But regardless if I have like a macros or a meal plan, if I do have calories and macros, even right now to this day, I make a meal plan out of those calories and macros, and I eat the same thing every day.
Me too.
And the reason that I like to do that on season and off season is because, especially on season, there's a lot of variables that are hard to track when you do macros.
Good point. Yeah.
So if you have gut issues, where's it coming from? And if you're changing your meal plan every day and you don't know what you're eating, what sauces and things, and it's kind of all up in the air.
Yeah.
And it's really affecting your digestion, or you're bloating a lot, and it's changing your physique, which could drastically, it could hinder you on stage. I'm just like, I don't want to risk that.
Yeah.
You know?
I get that way too, where even on meal plans, sometimes I'll have digestive issues, and it's easy for my coach and I to be like, okay, let's take out eggs. Like, let's just change that one thing and let's see how I feel. And if that was the thing, it was so easy to pinpoint. But what you're saying, like if my breakfast was different every single day, it's like, okay, we can try taking this out.
All of these things.
Yeah, exactly. And then, okay, let's try this for a few days. It's like you're changing your body too much and it's going to get more inflamed. So
totally agree.
Yeah.
So I think that's just up to you guys. So now, like, we've already started prep. It's freaking go time. I feel like during this stage, you're still like so excited and it's all new and you're kind of
You're seeing a lot of fast changes too. If you
Really?
yes. Those first few weeks for me, because
Okay, wait. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
With those first, like,
you're not like getting shredded
yes,
yet.
I remember my first week, like, getting into prep. Like, I lost like 3 pounds the first week. And then a little bit after that, it kind of just was like teetering.
For me, just like my inflammation and digestive issues,
Yes.
as soon as I start following a meal plan and sticking with it consistently, since I don't do that in my off seasons, my body instantly responds. So even if it's not even real fat loss, I can just like visibly see a big difference in those first few weeks.
Yeah, you definitely have like, you just look like overall a little bit more tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Less bloated.
Yep.
It's like, ooh.
This is nice.
This is nice.
Consistency.
And like during this time, like your calories should still be reasonably high. Like you're not necessarily fatigued yet. This is where if they are like crazy low and you're like 16 weeks out, my thought is always, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
My calories are already at like, I don't know, 1,300. Like, where do we go?
Yep. I've definitely made this mistake in not hiring a coach early enough where I've tried to start preps on my own. And I always underestimate for myself because we're our hardest critic, which is why we always say like coach is a non-negotiable. If you can't afford it, like that, I definitely recommend it because I've started at like 20, 18, 16 weeks out before hiring a coach. And I already dropped my calories so low that now this coach is like, well, we got to go even lower. Like we don't have an option, or you have to go even higher with cardio.
Yes.
And it just ruins your metabolism really fast. So if you are doing anything yourself, keep it gradual, like any other cut.
And then again, it's like you have 16 more weeks to go.
That's a lot of time.
Like the hardest parts of prep, and we'll talk about it, is like, that last like push. But if you're feeling that crappy for 20 weeks.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's something that like no human should need to do.
And I feel like that's good for us to talk about because we have gotten some questions where people are like, but you guys say prep's really hard. Isn't it supposed to be this hard? And it's like, not in the beginning. Like this stage, this first few weeks should definitely be not easy, but it should be exciting. You shouldn't be already having hormone imbalances and seeing like certain issues and certain red flags, and your calories shouldn't be so low that you're starving every day. Like that happens later in prep. Yes, we'll be honest with you, but in the beginning, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, especially like if you have done everything that we've talked about, and setting yourself up for success at the very beginning, then like it really shouldn't. But if you're coming in and you don't have any of the habits and you haven't even really been on point with your diet, you might be hungry and be like, this is so hard. How am I going to do this for 20 weeks?
Yeah.
But you guys aren't like that, right?
Yeah, no,
you guys
not
don't do
our
that.
listeners.
Yeah. I mean, so during this time, like your calories should still be relatively in a good spot. Maybe like a slight deficit from where your calories were at to begin with. And then maybe you have cardio in, maybe you don't. I typically, my cardio is pretty low at this point. It's more like I think I started at 15 minutes. I started this, everyone's going to be different. Again, we're going to say that a million times, but I think I started at like 15 minutes 3 days a week, and then it was 15 minutes 4 days a week, and then it was 5, and then it was just.
I even started with like treadmill just to like get my body moving and get used to the act of going and doing fasted cardio. And then I know when I switch into high gears when Stairmaster's in my program, and then it's just bumped up from there. We're both high levels of cardio girlies.
Yay! It's great. I would also say like during this time period, it would be a great time to start looking for a posing coach. And start posing as soon as you can. One of the mistakes we talked about last episode was that we both waited too long to do this. You don't make our mistake, because the posing is so important on your overall presentation and how the judges like perceive you on stage. And you're going to spend so much like time and effort in creating a physique. you want to present it nicely.
Yeah, don't let posing be the reason you don't place.
So if you're able to, I also have YouTube videos on, you know, basics of like wellness posing. I'm sorry, I don't go over other ones, but if you can't, you don't have the money to spend on a coach and do like personal Zooms. I also do wellness posing. I always forget that. But if, you know, if
I
you guys
also
are,
do too. I have not advertised that in years since I stopped competing, but I have coached many girls in posing. It's so fun. I love coaching girls.
do. It's really fun.
I was also going to say, like, my gym sometimes, if you're local to Austin, House of Gains sometimes puts on free posing seminars. Check out the gyms near you. See if there are any pros in your area who maybe would just like, even just like watch your routine for you, not necessarily like take an hour of posing if you can't afford paying them, but like just reaching out to people, getting free advice when you can, free seminars when you can, going to shows, going to fit expos, like seeing other competitors, it does help. So.
Yeah, I would say too, like during these stages, those are great things to do, is like start immersing yourself in what it feels like to be on stage and to see, you know, oh, wow, look at their faces when they're walking on. Okay, this is what the lighting is looking like. Oh, this is, because then it's also more motivation, more excitement for you. And you're right. I remember going to a lot of, like, when I first started like posing seminars, and there, of course, there was a lot of people there. Like you can find them through like the NPC, their website, their Instagram as well. And they post about them, and they're all over, you know, some states, you know, more than others. And I would go to all of those, and I would pose in like big groups of girls and get like the mandatories down. And then once I felt a little bit more confident, then I was like, okay, I want to find like a one-on-one posing coach where we can actually like nail down my routine. So I would start doing this now. Don't make the mistake like we did of doing it too late.
Not at all.
If you guys like wellness, Kendall and I both do wellness posing. Be happy to make you look fabulous.
It's fun. It's fun.
So fun. So now we're getting into like this mid-prep time. So this is like the 8 to 10 weeks out. I don't know about you, but this is where I call it the like boring part of prep.
Yeah. Like you're really in your routine and you're like, same thing every day.
Yes, you're so in your routine. It's like everything is very copy paste. Copy paste.
It's nice because you get peace of mind because you know what to expect every day.
Yes.
But it's definitely boring.
It's also like boring, and I always kind of feel like I'm a little bit in limbo because I'm in the middle. Like I'm not stage ready lean. I'm also not in my off season. So it's like I have like 1 foot on show day and like 1 foot in the off season to where I'm looking like I'm starting to look a little bit better. Like, you know, the weight is coming off, but I definitely am not ready yet, but I'm also can't go back. So I'm just like, okay, this is the point where I think consistency is everything, because it is very just routine, checking the boxes every day. And we use this example in like a previous podcast, but think of it as like you're chipping away at a little statue. Like during this time, it's just like chip. And eventually when we move into the next stage, like that's when you're going to start to see things like really moving and it becomes like very real.
Yeah. Also, this is the stage what you were saying, consistency matters so much because you start to lose that motivation a little bit because like what you're saying, you're not lean enough where you're like super excited because the show day is like in reach, but you're also not right at the beginning where everything's new and exciting. Like you really do have to rely a lot on discipline and consistency through like the mid part of prep because it's also kind of when like body dysmorphia starts to set in a little bit. Because if you are feeling like every day's the same and that you're looking the same, it's easy to convince yourself that like nothing's changing or you're not going to be ready. And I have definitely gone into panics, and I'm not one to like reach out to my coach being like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing next? But internally I've been like, why are we not doing more cardio? Why are we not changing my macros? Like, I feel like my physique doesn't change enough where I do panic internally a little bit, but it's one of those like trust the process times.
Yes, it really is. And I always, you know, when Zach and I were together, I would always be like, I'm in the boring part of prep.
Yeah.
Because also like and this kind of happens just like even with like clients like in the program, to where you're first getting started on something and there's like that excitement, which is what we talked about. You're like, okay, what suit color can I do? And like, okay, here's my coach, you're getting everything down. And now at this point you should have your routine down, and there's nothing, I was just going to say, there's nothing to be excited about anymore. But like,
it is kind of how it feels.
But at this point, it's like, okay, it's a little too soon, like, to sign up for your show, because we need to make sure you're ready.
Yeah.
You don't have you may not have your suit ready, and you may not get your jewelry, and you're booking your tan, like all of these things add to the excitement. But yeah, it's a little boring. But during this time, I feel like you start getting more slight discomfort. Maybe your cardio was increased a little bit more, calories were decreased a little bit more. But usually during this period of time, it's when I'll have days of more discomfort than others, but it's nothing that's really unbearable. Yeah. What about you?
It's not like extreme fatigue or anything yet.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, not yet. Where I actually feel like I usually feel pretty good during this stage because of adrenaline more than anything.
Yeah.
And like now waking up for fasted cardio doesn't feel like a chore anymore. It is so structured and routine where I'm just like in robot mode. So I don't really let a lot of the factors bother me quite yet. I feel like deeper, which we're going to get into next, is kind of when all of those like negative things usually start creeping in.
Yeah, because you start running out of time.
Yeah. It goes into panic mode again. But no, I would say I'm like fully chilling through this stage usually. It's like really excited, and then I'm chilling, and then it's like panic attacks.
Yeah.
That's like the modes I go through.
Yes, that's actually really, really true. Yeah, I totally agree.
So less excited, but not like really fatigued yet.
Yeah, and I feel like strength in the gym is usually still pretty good during this point. Like your calories might be a little bit lower and you're moving your body a little bit more, but you still are maintaining a pretty good amount of strength.
Pumps are really good during this stage too.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to like see those muscles pop a little more and maybe some veins coming out. So it is exciting. Like I think I really looked forward to certain like upper body sessions during this stage just because of like how my delts start looking.
Yeah. I think this is also the point in prep where you start recognizing more of these little things that are changing in your physique, to where you're like, you know what? In this stage is usually where I have that excitement about seeing more things. And in the next stage is where I'm like, nothing is ever good enough.
Yep. Again, it goes from excitement to...
During this time, I'm like, oh my God. Like I name my veins.
Me too. My singular vein.
I have like 2 arm veins that go down. I now have a calf vein, and this, Freddie, his name is Freddie and his last name is Devane.
So dumb.
And then I think this one is Bobby. Freddie stays almost year round now, which is great, but you're actually like excited about those things. You're like, ooh, they're so cool. And like, you're honestly feeling really proud.
Yeah.
During this stage, strong, powerful, and you're super consistent like with your routine.
Everyone's physique changes differently, obviously, depending on like where you hold body fat. But for me, like around closer to the end of this mid prep, where I'm like around 8 weeks out, is when like visible abs come through for me. They probably aren't super lean or super deep. Yeah, but I feel like you get shredded everywhere. I unfortunately just lose my stomach.
Mine
which
will
is
be
nice
like,
in its own way.
My limbs look good, and then it's like torso.
You're crazy.
Which is my back and my stomach. I'm like, when are you coming? And
so for me, that's legs. I'm like, I guess you guys are just staying thick.
And see, like, this is also where it is different from person to person, because my limbs stay very lean. Like I will have lines in my legs year round, and my arms look really good. And then for me, when I'm cutting, the stomach is the last thing to come in, and the back. And everybody genetically will carry fat in different areas. Women tend to carry a lot more fat in their lower body. And depending on what division that you're competing in, like wellness. It's like, if you got fat in your lower body and that's what we're really being judged off, like we can't have that.
Yeah.
So during like these next few stages, you learn a lot like about your body, and you're like, well, like I'm carrying it here, but I'm not carrying it here.
That's a good point too. If you are a first time competitor, this 8 to 10 weeks out zone is probably when like maybe you've been this lean before.
Yes.
Maybe you're not like fully tapped into like a version of you haven't seen yet, but you do get an idea of like where you're about to be, because you do start to see like, oh, I'm getting really lean in this one area, so I know that's going to get shredded first. And then you get excited. The one thing you can hold excitement for during this time is like seeing your weak points still come up. So like, if your abs are the last to come in, like the excitement then of like, I need to keep working, because once we get that, like that's a milestone for me. So,
and now like with that knowledge, you can go into next preps and being like, have a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
Like my first one, I was freaking out because I didn't understand my body yet and how it lost fat and where I carried it. I didn't know any of that. Now I'm like, we got it. It's cool. I know.
My lower back's coming in later.
I know. I'm like, my back, she gonna be hanging on. My stomach, I'll see her at 4 weeks out, okay? And this time I hit, it's always been a goal of mine to have a 24-inch waist, and I had a 20.
No, your waist was non-existent.
Bro.
You could have floated away.
Literally insane. I remember like show day morning, I woke up, the lightest I have ever been, and I measured my waist, and just hitting that was like,
that's crazy, dude.
It absolutely insane. So yes, during this time, it's like you really start to learn your body, and it can be one of those things that's frustrating. Just to give you like a comparison, I'm talked about her a lot, where my friend Alexa, who's a figure pro, we're opposite. She abs come in first, and
she's got like good abs.
Yes.
Like mine, like I'll see definition, but mine are wonky. She has like perfectly symmetrical, like 8-pack.
Yep. Yeah. Year round has them, like they just stay relatively lean. And me and her were on prep around the same time this year. And I even remember like we were hanging out together. We have the same coach. Like we're on the same trajectory, words are hard, to compete in the show. And I remember seeing her abs coming in and literally being like, oh my God, I'm not ready. But realizing too that we're opposite, where mine come in later, hers come in first. And for her, her lower body comes in last. Yeah. And she would like, we, be texting each other about our preps, and I'd be like, yo, my back's still fat. No, just kidding. I'd be like, my stomach's still not coming in. And she's like, my legs are still carrying fat, and it's like,
you'll
opposite.
See your tie-in way earlier in prep before like my hamstrings are just like
I still
covered.
Have one right now.
Yeah, like
it's
that's like I know I'm getting really lean when I can finally see my tie-in.
That's crazy.
That shit takes forever for me.
Yeah, and like this is good knowledge to know, because it is, and when we talk about this next phase, which is like the final stages and the hardest part in my opinion, other than like going into peak week, which we'll talk about next episode, but that 4 to 6 weeks out mark, where that's where you're digging to a place that you've never gone before.
That's when it's not like, oh, I'm casually cutting. It's like you're so deep in prep where things are definitely, are we fully getting into this now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I dive into it.
Do it.
This is usually like some people.
Wait. Yeah. However, I did want to mention during that like 8 to 10 week out mark, technical things to kind of do. If your coach believes that you're going to be ready, then start like thinking about travel and signing up for a show.
Smart.
And maybe even like during this time, like shoes, jewelry, tan, booking your tan. If you're renting a suit, like start getting your suit. The suit thing is a difficult one to do because the suit needs to fit you. And if you're going to be losing 10 more pounds, like we don't want to risk the suit not fitting you when you hit stage.
Yeah.
So that's something that can be really challenging to kind of gauge when to do based off of your body fat. So when I am getting my suit and I'm starting to plan what colors I want for my next season, they usually say, how much weight do you plan on losing?
Yeah.
Before, did not know that.
Yeah.
When I first got started, had no idea. Now, after doing it a couple of years, I know, okay, I'm going to probably be this size.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably be this size, and I can gauge it pretty well.
Certain realistic things too, where like I don't have implants. So like, yeah, I might be a C cup right now. My bikini on show day is going to be like an A cup, like, and I'm going to need as much push up as I can get. So like noting those things too, where like maybe you'll lose them right away. Maybe you won't lose them until the final few weeks, but that does determine how your bikini top is going to fit, which like thankfully a lot of the divisions still have like some adjustability. But I know like some of the wellness bottoms you can't adjust at all. I know bikinis sometimes
they have the connectors, and the connectors are like, it's not a hook, it's just like you get in it or you don't. Like I always would tell YouTube this, I'm like, I ain't gonna fit into this until maybe 3 weeks out, and I literally have to shimmy over my quads. But that's why getting like a posing suit and starting to get an idea of how it fits and what your measurements are and keeping track of that is very helpful during that 8 to 10 weeks out mark, so that when you are getting ready and you're like, okay, the physique is coming, it's coming, then you have a better idea for sizing. Anyways, 4 weeks out.
4 weeks.
4 to 6
4
weeks.
to 6 weeks. I would say 5 weeks exactly. So right in the middle of this is when I say like, it is kind of the hardest time. I would say the last 5 weeks. 6 weeks, I'm still like kind of okay. And I think the hardest part of this timeline is you are digging deep enough where you are exhausted, but you're not close enough to show day where it feels worth it yet. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like at like 2 weeks out, the stage feels so close that you're just adrenaline, excitement. It's almost here. You go crazy. But that little like 6, 5, 4 weeks.
That's when you literally want to give up.
Yeah. Because you're like, another month.
Yes.
Over a month.
Yes. That's the time that will separate you from the people that will step on stage, will compete, will stay disciplined, versus the people that will self-sabotage.
It's definitely the most trying times.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically.
I dated a bodybuilder before I got into bodybuilding. And so I had an understanding just from watching him. I had to hide this man's credit cards because he walked to a donut shop at 3 a.m.
He slept donut 8.
Like
walked to a donut shop.
I hid his card. He took my card and walked and bought himself donut. Like that, I know that is a drastic version of this, and he's a little crazy anyway. But that's kind of how it feels. We're like, someone lock me in my room. I'm just gonna sleep all day if I can, because it really does get really challenging. During this time, you probably have the most cravings. You haven't had a cheat meal in forever. You forget what donuts taste like, so you might sleepwalk to them.
Yes, and I feel like during this part as well, you are tapping into something that you might not have ever done before, and reaching a level that is that unrealistic, that unhealthy, that kind of like, whoa part. And mentally, where your mind might play little tricks on you, where you're kind of mildly panicking, like, am I going to be ready? Like, is this enough?
Yeah.
Then maybe you get nervous about being on stage. Oh my God, what is that going to be like? Body dysmorphia. Like you never think that it's enough, or maybe you stop seeing progress as you did at the 8 to 10 weeks out, where you were like, whoa, here's a vein. And I know for me during this point, this is where I'm like, nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
More.
Because you've been seeing the same physique for a while now. And if you are practicing posing all the time, it's so easy to be like, nothing has changed since I've been 10 weeks out, and now I'm 5 weeks out and I'm not going to be ready. When in reality, our physiques do change a lot in that timeline. It's just, again, still kind of that like boring phase where you are so consistent every day, where you might lose track of that motivation, which is why you fully have to rely on discipline.
Yes.
Because, and the whole like trust the process. That is my favorite saying throughout prep, especially this stage, because it is easy to get in your head, and it is easy to feel like you're not ready, and it is easy to self-sabotage by eating off plan, plan or pulling out completely. And the one time I pulled out of the show was at 6 weeks out. Yeah.
Yeah, because like during this phase, like your calories are pretty low, you know, leading into like the 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to where we're in peak week. They most likely will be kind of like tapering into a little bit lower and then starting to bump up if you're able to, like if you time it right to where you're able to kind of, which I was able to do that this time, where they were low leading into those peak weeks, and then I was able to have a like refeed, and I was able to rest a little bit more. It was like,
it's nice.
if you do it, if you stay consistent and you like keep on track, then it's almost like you're kind of rewarded for it, because it's like, okay, we have been on the gas for a long time now. It actually might be beneficial if we pull off the gas, you know, have some fatigue management, inflammation can come down, give you a little bit more food. Like that's possible if everything goes according to plan.
I was going to say, one of like the hardest weeks, we'll go into peak week next week's episode, but one of the hardest weeks of prep actually isn't peak week. I think a lot of people expect it to be. I think it's the week before, which I always call hell week.
I think it's the week before.
Because that's when cardio is probably at its absolute highest. Carbs and food in general are at the absolute lowest. And if you do that properly, yes, it might suck, but looking forward to peak week and getting those carbs and getting that rest and like being able to see your body fill out is the reward. Like it's exciting. So I think just don't think about, okay, I'm 6 weeks out from stepping on stage, so I have 6 weeks of like the hardest ever. In reality, it's like 5 weeks. Peak week, you get to float into it. If you do those 5 weeks correctly.
That's the ideal way.
I've had preps where I got to do cardio 2 days before show.
Yes. And
not always.
You don't want that to be the case, because that, let's call it the 6 to 5 Hell week would be that week before. So Hell week and then peak week, because during that time frame, like those weeks before peak week, and if you guys don't know what peak week is, it's literally just like the last 7 days, 7 days away from the day you step on stage. So you might be looking flat. So this is where I feel like I have no muscle. I feel like a skeleton. I feel like a little sickly little thing that's like walking around, and like I have bags under my eyes. I look like tired, exhausted. Like I look like I'm on the verge of just dying.
It's always worse in your own head, but I get what you're saying.
I'm like, and I just
prep face.
Yeah, prep face. I feel the way that I look, but because you have spent so much time like leaning out and losing body fat, and peak week is supposed to be, okay, now that we have done that, how can we fill you back up, reduce inflammation, give you some rest, because all of that in combination is going to give you a incredible physique on stage.
Yeah.
This is also when that Hell week, I usually start like water loading a little bit during that time.
Yeah.
And water loading is like drinking more water than I typically do on a day-to-day basis in anticipation of cutting water for peak week slowly.
So your physique changes a lot in like 3 to 1 weeks out.
Yes.
Where you have, honestly, it should give you peace of mind. You have no clue how you're going to look on stage because there is no not feeling like you're ready, because you haven't even done the protocols that are going to give you that last little bit where like the last 2 weeks of prep consistently, I will lose at least 5 pounds just because you are fully pulling everything out of you.
Yeah.
So even if you are in that panic zone where like maybe you are listening to this and you are in that 6 week out zone and it does feel really hard right now, like just remembering like the more you stick to it right now will again make those last few weeks easier, but also make those last few weeks have the biggest change on your physique.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Positive change.
Yes. Yeah. And like during this time, I'm always super like brain foggy.
Oh yeah.
I say no to a lot of social things during this time. Like for me, this is the, like I get a little irritable and angry during this time. And I start to notice like when I do that, and I try not to, but I know that about myself. So I just like, okay, you just go to the gym and then you come back home.
See,
don't let anybody else, like, you chose to do this.
Yeah.
So just stay in your house.
The way you get angry is me getting, of course, sad.
Sad, yeah.
Where this is when I'm crying on the Stairmaster,
Really?
and I don't even know what I'm crying about. Like, I'll just like, if I watch someone else's show day video on the Stairmaster during this time, I'm crying for this stranger.
This would be the best time to do that because it's you need
that dig.
This is the connection to your why that we talked about. This is like I would watch like Christian Guzman's like show day, like literally anybody, Laura Lee's show day,
watch Julia's.
You can watch my show day because you can see like why it's like a reminder of like, okay, all of your hard work is paying off. You can't see it right now, but eventually that's going to be you. Okay. So just like keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel pretty terrible during this time.
You just don't feel normal. You don't have your energy like you used to. You're really fatigued. You're not as strong. And what you were saying about like you feel flat.
Weak as hell.
Feeling weak and feeling flat as someone who got into this because you love training. Like it's definitely like really challenging to see. I would say more challenging than the actual physical things you need to do. This is when it becomes more mental than physical.
This is the hardest part, I would say, mentally. Yeah.
But it gets easier. Like I feel like from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3, every week in my head gets a little easier because the show is now approaching. So it's like it goes from like stress and excitement start to kind of like switch.
Yeah, because it starts to become more real and you normally you're like, I am so close, I don't want to risk anything, you know? And then 6 weeks, it's like,
yeah, that's harder because you're quite a bit away.
Could I risk anything? I don't know. But yeah, that strength in the gym is always really tough for me during this time. But what I have learned over the years of doing it is just reminding myself, okay, you're competing to have the best look on stage, not to be the strongest on stage.
This isn't powerlifting.
Okay, so I will just be like, all right, cool. If I'm lifting half the weight I normally can, fine. Fine.
If it gives me my
at
pump,
least
I'm
I
good.
have absies. It's fine, you know. I look good. But this is where I always use the phrase, "I look good, but I feel like shit."
Yep. That is true.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But you also have to remember, like all of this leading up to it, the 6, 5, 4. This is all super exciting. And it starts to become more exciting as you get closer to the show because maybe your jewelry's coming in, your suit is coming in. Like you're fitting it and everything. And this is that point where you want to be posing like every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be with the posing coach every day, but during these stages, I was posing with my posing coach on Zoom every week. And then every day I was doing my posing in between all of my sets after my post cardio.
I would pose most mornings after cardio. I would just hop into the posing room, even if I didn't like have my bikini, just shorts, just bringing my heels everywhere. Really, they stayed in my gym bag. Oh yeah. My last piece of advice for people in this stage is to document everything, because when body dysmorphia does set in, you no longer want to take photos. You're no longer feeling like, not necessarily not proud of your physique, but not as like excited about the micro changes you were seeing in the beginning. Do not let it defer you from still like sharing your journey on social media or taking photos for yourself or planning photo shoots during this time, because once you're in peak week, you're not going to have the energy to be doing some photo shoots until after the show. This
season was the first one that I was uber consistent with documenting and content, because there was so many times where I would just stop, you know, and now off season me can look back and I'm like, I'm so glad that you did that. Jeez, because you looked awesome, even though you didn't think you did at that moment.
And especially sharing it like to your extent of being on YouTube, but even if you're not like a YouTuber or huge on social media, just like I always would share literally my progress photos. Like this was like the last prep I did. I would share my progress photos. I would say how many weeks out I was, some of my stats, and I would write about how I was feeling. And I did that for me. I doubt anyone cared about my stats and how I'm feeling at that time. But then, okay, I could look back. I still have them I think I might have 1 or 2 on my page, but I archived a bunch of them, and I can still read like, oh, okay, I'm 7 weeks out right now, 7 weeks out last year. This is how I was feeling. It helps a lot.
It does.
Or seeing other competitors, don't compare yourself to their physique, but hearing how they're feeling too, or like listening that like, hey, you're not alone, that this is a hard time for everyone.
Yes.
Journal, document, whatever you need to do so that you have something to look back on also, and like hold yourself accountable with that.
Oh yeah. I like can't wait to look back at like all of the journals that I've had during preps where, you know, they're like, I can read them and I'll be like, oh my God, I woke up 1:40 blah, blah, blah this morning, like so excited. And then knowing that like at the end, I ended up at 1:32 or something. It's just, it is really great to like document it, whatever feels comfortable to you. Like like Kendall said, it doesn't have to be social media, but just like in a regular weight loss phase, like you want to document like through progress photos and you know how you're feeling and looking back and knowing that I felt like that, but I kept going. I'm a freaking badass.
I would write myself like motivational speeches most days during this time because I just needed it, and I needed it from me. Like I just had to preach to myself sometimes, where this was definitely my like motivational speeches on Instagram phase 2, where I was like, girl, you're just talking to yourself.
This was my like, you need to visualize yourself on stage every single day during cardio, during your training, because you're starting to lose it. You're losing your cookies. Okay. And during this point too, these weeks are when you want to have everything nailed down as far as, okay, I have my shoes for stage. Tanning is booked. Hair, makeup, travel, hotel, all of these things are ready to go. You want to be set.
Get a lot of stuff as far out as you can during the stage. Once you know what show you're doing, try to book everything early, because like the brain fog is real and only gets worse. Where I compare it, how people talk about pregnancy brain is how I feel about prep brain, where like certain things like you know you're supposed to do, but you kind of forget because you got a lot of other stuff on your mind. So try to get it while you know it. Not when you're 2 weeks out and like stressed. Also,
Hell Week, which we've just coined. You've coined basically.
That's always what I've heard it be called.
The week before
Sorry
peak
if that's
week.
Disrespectful, but that's how it be feeling.
No, for real. That is also my like Super Bowl in terms of all of my glam that I do. I go very extra when it comes to my glam, and it's not necessary.
Yeah, I respect it.
That week when I'm also pushing to that level, I'm getting like my Brazilian. I am getting
nails.
My nails done. I try to get it as close to like that end of the week kind of thing. It depends on when I leave.
Actually, yeah, I think I do nails.
I'm doing my like facial. My Botox was a little two weeks before that, so that it has time to set in, but I also don't have any like bumps and, you know, bruising or anything like that. So yeah, that's my like Super Bowl. It's like almost every other day. It's like massage, chiropractor, facial, Botox. Like I'm having all of these things.
Oh, that's good to talk about too. This whole phase, I would say actually mid-prep to this stage, maybe not super early in prep quite yet, your body hurts. And you're going to need to get like some sort of adjustments, some sort of massage therapy, like regular. If not, please invest in like Theraguns, foam roller, like do as much as you can. Really prioritize like stretching before workouts, stretching after workouts, like go that extra mile, because I remember like trying to pose around like 4 weeks out, and I literally couldn't because my body just hurt that bad from all the Stairmaster I was doing. And that too, like talk to your coach. If something's like really painful and you can't pose, how are you going to pose on stage? So I remember around like 4 weeks out, we had to switch one of my Stairmaster sessions to an elliptical just to take a little less impact off my lower back so I could hit a back pose. So just like monitor how you're feeling physically. It is really mentally challenging. Physically, you're doing the same thing every day, but it does start to add up and you can get in pain.
I know. I remember injuries. Just like... We're making it sound so fun. I remember just anything that wasn't what I had to do if it wasn't my fasted cardio, if it wasn't my posing, if it wasn't my training, if it wasn't my post-workout cardio, it's crazy. I was like, okay, I'm not doing any of the other things. Like literally, I can remember this specific moment where I had to tap into something that I had never done before. And it was the time frame between my first show and my second show.
This last prep?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the hardest part of my prep ever, because I had already had like the dopamine and the excitement and all of the things from the first show.
Yeah.
And on this second one, I was pushing even more than I had already pushed for that other one. And it was like high, getting, and then it was like, okay, back to lock. Oh, it was so difficult.
And you get a taste of real food for a second.
Yes. And then it was like, okay, no, you got to dial it back in.
Yeah.
And I remember I had to do an hour-long coaching call with my girls that I do every week. And I started walking up the stairs to do it. And I just kind of like fell onto the stairs in like fetal position.
No.
And I was telling Zach, I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And he's just sat there next to me, and he was like, you can do it. It's okay. Like you've never been this lean before. And I was like, I can't. I literally just kept going, I can't. And he's like, no, you can do it. And he like picked me up, and he had to like walk me up the stairs to like sit me and just doing it. And then, oh God, I was somehow managed to do it. And it was always like worth it. But
yeah, it always feels the payoff after you're like proving to yourself what you're capable of doing. That's half of why. Actually, that's my whole why statement almost every single time. So that's why you're doing the thing. So like in those hard times, really connecting to that. And like
at that point, I was like, I don't see it. I need someone to tell me.
I don't know the why.
I don't know why I'm doing this. Someone tell me.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes you need that. And that's why like support system's really important, especially the last few weeks. And like I've done hell weeks alone, and that is not easy work. And like you really have to be honest with yourself, and you definitely meet a version of yourself you've never met before. And she might be a little scary. She might have to snap at you a few times to like shake you back into like remembering why you're doing this, but it's always worth it.
Yeah. It's
unless
fun,
you
guys.
think we sound crazy.
Yes.
For some people it's not worth it and they hate it.
Yeah,
but we love it.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And that's why like this is a series about, okay, is this for you?
Yeah.
You know, like seeing if this is something that you want to do. And, each time you'll tap into a new version of yourself and see how powerful you truly are.
Yeah.
Each time, be like, okay, cool. I didn't think that I can get through that, but I did.
Yeah.
What can I do now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And every single prep is different and easier in certain ways, maybe harder and different because maybe you are getting leaner than you've ever been, and that does take a toll, but like at least you know somewhat what to expect.
Yeah.
Which helps. So
well, guys, that's a little idea of what prep is like. And now, like, of course, everybody's is going to be different. Prep is a very personal thing. There are some things that are kind of just like givens, like that you're going to have. But
I know some people, like I think Callum Von Mo. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try.
I don't know.
I was going to try. I shouldn't. I remember he like walks around lean, just as an example, because Julia and I have very similar preps, but they're like, this guy started prepping 12 weeks out and like, it was a breeze. Yeah. And he stepped on stage and won.
See, and that is the thing. There are some people that have different kinds of preps where they don't have to do as much cardio. They don't have to go as lean. So this is purely like our experience through prep and what we have to do.
I would say we're pretty average with our preps,
I mean,
though. Maybe on the harder cardio side, but
yeah, definitely the harder.
Food never really bothered me. It was always just cardio.
Mine's the opposite. Yeah, mine's the opposite.
You love Stairmaster.
I'm like, I will be on the Stairmaster for 3 days straight if you give me more food.
What's insane is how you would combine your sessions sometimes.
Yeah,
just for some insight. Last 2 weeks,
I shouldn't have done that.
Julia and I were doing the same show, my last show, that like years ago. And I would get to fasted cardio to do my hour, and I would do my whole hour with your last hour, meaning you've already been there.
I did 2 hours back to back because like
I had to split mine up because that's crazy work. Yeah. I have no idea how you did that.
I was getting to the gym as soon as the gym opened, and then I was there for 2 hours just doing I shouldn't have done that. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, no.
If you have to do that much, like it should be broken up. But I, at that point,
this was a long time ago. It was a different time. We didn't know.
We were wiser. We're grown. But yeah, that's prep, guys. Next week, we're going to be talking about peak week and show day.
That's the exciting episode. This was the brutal episode.
Yeah.
Well, some of it. Some of it's exciting.
Yeah, I was like, all of the beginning was like, this is fun. And the rest is like,
and this is when
this
it
is
takes
where
a
it gets
turn.
hard. But it's good to kind of know.
Yeah.
So,
No, I was so prepared because everyone around me was like 5 weeks out, it's going to be the hardest. And I'm like, that's good to know. And then once again, 4 gets a little easier, 3 gets a little easier. It's just that like 6 and 5 weeks is rough, man. But I'd rather us be honest with y'all than you be like, they said this was going to be easy.
Yeah. And look, you might be listening to this and you might be somebody who's like, I didn't have to do much cardio. I got to eat a lot of food. Like that might be the case. And you know what? I'm happy for you.
So happy.
I'm so happy
What's
for
it
you.
like?
But honestly, I do wish that for you. I do wish that for you because.
No, I hope everyone has like an easy, especially first prep. I feel like my first prep was like, it was hard mentally, but like physically not that bad. So, and they've gotten harder since.
Nice. All right, y'all. Well, we will see you next week with another bodybuilding blueprint episode. And as always, we love you all so much and you're more powerful than you think.
Bye.
Bye.